In my past life, I appeared at the Pei family's doorstep with a pregnant belly, gazing at the elegant and noble Pei Yun. I felt both nervous and excited. Young master, I'm pregnant, and the child is yours. As I wished, I became the young mistress of the Pei family. Everyone says I have a fortunate fate. They don't know that since then, Pei Yun never stepped into my room again. Only later did I learn that he was supposed to get married. The very next day after I visited. In this second life, Pei Yun stands right in front of me. Before I could speak, he suddenly snatched the token from my hand and coldly whispered in my ear, "The child is not to be called mine. In this life, I will not marry you." Only then did I realize, he had also been reborn. Well, in this life, I never intended to marry him again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. Lady Pei followed closely behind, just as in the previous life. "May I ask what brings you here, Miss?" Pei Yun stared at me intently, his gaze laced with warning. Looking at Lady Pei, my heart ached, and tears nearly fell. If there was anyone in my past life who treated me well, it was only the old madam. I bit my lip, my voice hoarse. "Madam, I've come to find you." She froze for a moment, her gaze tightly locked onto me, and after a long pause, her voice trembled. You're the girl from the Sanyang family." It wasn't until my previous life, after entering the mansion, that I came to know this. My grandmother, Lady Ningzong, and the Pei matriarch were not only cousins but also once bosom friends in their youth. Later, when the Ning family fell into misfortune, I became an orphan, and my appearance bore a striking resemblance to my grandmother's. Another wave of sorrow washed over her. Old Lady Pei sighed, glanced at Pei Yun standing quietly to the side, then looked at me and said with a bitter smile, "You don't know this, but you and a Yun were actually betrothed in a childhood marriage arrangement. It's just a pity that after the Ning family's troubles, we lost all trace of you. At this moment, you're with child, yet no one knows who the father is. How could they let you come to the capital alone?" I looked up, and Pei Yun also cautiously turned his gaze toward me, full of wariness. Half a year ago, in an unexpected incident, Pei Yun, who had been drugged, and I shared a fleeting moment of passion. Before dawn broke, the man had already vanished without a trace. In the haze, I only remember the man's hoarse whisper, "If you ever face hardship, you may come to the capital to seek me," and a twinfish jade pendant engraved with his name, left beneath the pillow. In my past life, when I sought him out, he married me under pressure from his child and grandmother, forever missing his true love and leaving me neglected for a lifetime. This time, he took the twinfish pendant first, clearly wanting no ties with me. Fine. I didn't want to marry him again in this lifetime anyway. After a long silence, I heard my own voice. "The father of this child, I don't know who it is." The smoke curled upward. Pei Yun's stiff limbs relaxed slightly. Old Madam Pei frowned slightly, eyeing me cautiously. "Child, have you been wronged by some villain?" My eyes ached with fatigue. I nodded, then quickly shook my head. "That accident was not my intention. But this child, I insisted on keeping. Now, over 6 months have passed, and it can no longer be aborted." The old lady pondered for a moment before speaking carefully. "I wonder if that person has any distinguishing marks. The Pei family has some connections, and Ayun can help you search for them. If he's a good man, then perhaps." Pei Yun seized the moment to interject. "Indeed, Miss Ning, feel free to ask for anything." He stood with his back to the light, his profile turned toward me. His half-lidded dark eyes held a meaningful gaze. My thoughts were in turmoil, so I merely muttered, "It seems there is something on the shoulder." With that, Pei Yun suddenly turned to look at me, his sharp gaze faintly burning with anger. Only then did I remember. He too had a red mole on his shoulder. A bare back flashed through my mind, and I hastily corrected myself. "It's a birthmark. A crescent-shaped birthmark." He let out a sigh of relief and nodded slightly. "Miss Ning, rest assured, Yun will do his utmost to search. I will surely help the young lady find a good match." The last 2 words were uttered with deliberate emphasis, as if hinting at something. I smiled bitterly, realizing he wanted to stay away from me so much. In my past life, I was so immersed in joy that I failed to see it. I settled in Ningyi Garden. Lady Pei specially arranged for someone to tend to my health and monitor the pregnancy. The next day, the Marchioness of Yongning personally visited to confirm the marriage alliance between the two families. It was settled that the second daughter of the Deng family would be the bride, Pei Yun's beloved. The second Deng daughter was proud by nature. In her past life, upon learning of my entanglement with Pei Yun, she decisively called off the engagement without a second thought. Now that I'm gone, they can finally have their wish fulfilled. After seeing the physician off, I fed the fish for a while longer before heading back to my room. As I turned the corridor, I unexpectedly encountered a familiar figure. In the courtyard, Deng Li sat on the swing, her smile sweet and radiant. Pei Yun pushed the swing absent-mindedly, smiling as he watched her. Deng Li's gaze drifted over, her expression slightly frozen. Soon, she raised her head and arched her brows. Brother Yun, how could there still be a pregnant woman in the mansion? Pei Yun also looked over, his face subtly stiffening for a moment. He is the descendant of grandmother's old friend. Since he hasn't found his husband yet, he is staying at the mansion for a few days. I nodded in acknowledgement and turned to walk over. Staying temporarily. The Pei family was not one that couldn't tolerate others. I suppose Pei Yun was afraid I might cause trouble and wanted to drive me away. In the afternoon, before I could even rest, a maid came to announce that the heir had arrived. Pei Yun's expression was rather unpleasant. His dark eyes, deep and unfathomable, bore down on me heavily. You knew perfectly well that Lear was here. Why did you insist on appearing before her? Or perhaps, you're trying to force me to break off the engagement again. I took a step back and shook my head. You overthink, my lord. I have no such intention. He frowned, staring at me for a long moment before saying, I know you're carrying my child, and you're upset that I refuse to acknowledge you. Don't worry. Once Lyre enters the household, I'll find a way to take you as my concubine. But before that, you must behave and not cause any trouble. Or don't blame me for not giving you face. He stood in the light and shadow. His reflection fell on the ground. Pitch black. It had been a long time since we last met, and the coldness in his eyes was even more pronounced than before. I stared at him blankly, then spoke with difficulty after a long pause. Rest assured, my lord, I have no intention of marrying you. Once the child is born, I will leave. He let out a mocking laugh and said nothing more. I knew he didn't believe me. After all, where could an orphan girl like me go if I left this marquis's household? From then on, I stopped wandering in the backyard. Occasionally when I encountered Pei Yun, I would simply step aside to avoid him. He seemed quite satisfied, and his expression improved somewhat upon seeing me. A few more days passed, when the Dowager Lady Pei sent someone to summon me over. She sat upright in the rosewood armchair, her expression rather peculiar. Her first words were, I know who the father of your child is. She girl. I stumbled, nearly falling, but was steadied by a firm hand. After a moment of tension, the old lady patted her forehead in self-reproach. My fault. I almost frightened you. My heart nearly leaped out of my chest. Could it be that the old madam has discovered my affair with Pei Yun? After being helped to sit steadily by the maid, the old madam finally spoke. That day when you mentioned the birthmark, I felt somewhat familiar with it. After much thought, I finally remembered where I had seen it before. It was Lord Lucian of the Northern Garrison Bureau. I held him when he was born and happened to see this birthmark. With that, he pressed my hand and sighed. Unfortunately, Lucian is known for his reckless and erratic behavior. After his mother's death, he cut all ties with the Liu family, and everyone shakes their head at the mention of him. To be honest, he's hardly a suitable match. My unsettled heart was once again on edge. The so-called crescent birthmark actually originated from a wounded soldier I casually treated when I worked as a healer in Jiangzhou. Thinking that Jiangzhou was remote and no one would know, I had casually mentioned it, never expecting it would cause such trouble. Lucian is a notorious figure from the Northern Garrison, long at odds with Pei Yun. If he were to find out I pinned the child on him, I bit my lip and reluctantly changed my words. Madam, perhaps I misremembered. The lighting was dim that day, and it's possible I couldn't see clearly. My hand was patted gently as Madame Pei spoke with a smile. All right, I know young ladies are shy. I've already asked on your behalf, and it was indeed him. I gave him a good scolding and told him about your pregnancy. He was stunned for a long while before saying he wanted to marry you. I was shocked, utterly speechless. You're saying he wants to marry me? Yes. The old lady nodded as if it were a matter of course. Now that your belly is so big, he can't possibly shirk responsibility. He has already agreed to marry you as soon as possible. My face turned pale, my fingers twisting the handkerchief tightly, my emotions in such turmoil that I almost blurted out, "It won't do." The old lady was slightly taken aback and soon looked at me disapprovingly. "The Liu family's status is not low. She-girl. The fact that he is willing to marry you as his official wife already shows how highly he regards you. You must not let a momentary whim ruin such an important matter." I opened my mouth but found no words to refute her. No matter the reason, this man wants to marry me. If I were to marry like this, it wouldn't be fair to anyone. Lady Pei was still trying to persuade me. After a long silence, I nodded perfunctorily. "Very well. I'll find an opportunity to clarify matters with this Lord Liu." With Pei Yun's wedding approaching, the entire estate had become bustling with activity. Seizing the moment when no one was paying attention, I took a veil hat and went alone to the northern town office. After waiting for a long time, I finally saw someone calling for Lord Liu. It had been so long that I could hardly remember his appearance. The man before me was dressed in an indigo blue official robe, with sharp eyebrows and eyes, and an elegant demeanor. He looked vastly different from the disheveled and mud-stained face in my memory. He wasn't the least bit annoyed when I stopped him. Instead, he stared straight at me. After a brief moment of surprise, I lowered my head. "My lord, the child in my belly is not mine." He seamlessly picked up the conversation. Not a trace of change showed on his face. I looked up in surprise, my pupils dilating. "You knew and still?" He raised his eyes to look at me with a faint smile. "Have I really fallen so low that I can't even tell which woman I'm sleeping with? Then why did you still marry me?" He curved his lips, his gaze also tinged with amusement, and spoke unhurriedly. "Old Lady Pei came to me, claiming I had defiled the descendant of her friend. She even said the Ning family girl personally pointed out the birthmark on my back, insisting I give an explanation. After much thought, the only one that fits the description is that Ning she girl from Jiangzhou." With that, he glanced at me, the corners of his eyes lifting with a meaningful look. "Miss Ning saved my life. It's only natural to offer myself in return. What's the harm in that?" I widened my eyes and waved my hands hesitantly. "That's not what I meant." Only when I met his smiling gaze did I realize he was joking. Pursing my lips, I made up my mind and looked into his eyes solemnly, saying, "I deeply appreciate your kindness, my lord, but if I were to marry you, it would not only be unfair to my child's father, but also to you. This matter was my lack of consideration, and I have burdened you. My lord, if you are angry, direct it all at me, but this marriage must end here." The air fell silent. Lucian's expression remained unchanged, still appearing to smile, yet the smile did not reach his eyes. His pupils were equally unreadable, dark and unfathomably cold. After a long while, just as I was almost breaking into a cold sweat, he finally let out a faint sigh. "If you're unwilling to marry, fine, I'll grant you your wish." With this major concern resolved, I felt much more at ease. Old Lady Pei had been looking at me lately as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. I don't know what Lucian told her, but she stopped bringing up my marriage again. After June passed, my belly grew even larger, and I dared not eat too much, so I began to restrain my diet. In my previous life, the baby was too large during childbirth, nearly causing a difficult delivery, so this time I was especially cautious. It was around this time that news came from the Marquis's residence. The Marchioness of Yongming's condition had worsened, and her life was in danger. If the Marchioness were to pass away, the second Miss Deng would have to observe a 3-year mourning period. It said that Pei Yun was extremely anxious, fearing that the long-awaited marriage might encounter another mishap. I recalled for a moment. In my previous life, not long after I married Pei Yun, I had also heard about the critical illness of the Lady of Yongming Marquise. The details of the process are unclear, but I heard everything turned out fine in the end. It seems Pei Yun was also worried to the point of confusion. Shaking my head with a wry smile, I put the matter out of my mind. But unexpectedly, an incident occurred the very next day. While packing my luggage, I couldn't find a brocade pouch from my treasure chest no matter how hard I searched. "This pouch isn't valuable. What matters is the letter inside." That was a letter between my grandmother and Dr. Luo. Before her passing, she told me that in a life-threatening crisis, I could use this letter to beg the miracle doctor to save my life. In my previous life, because the child was too large, I used this letter to ask the divine doctor to save both me and my child during the difficult birth. Only I know about the letter. No. There's also the reborn Pei Yun. I sprang to my feet, trembling with rage as I thought of the critically ill Lady Yongning. It's Pei Yun. He has such a cruel heart. The child in my womb is his own flesh and blood. The divine physician once said that without him in the previous life, even if the child was born, it might have been mentally impaired. Pei Yun actually used my child's life to please the person he loves. Without a second thought, I rushed out. At the gatehouse, Pei Yun was about to mount his horse. I recklessly pulled him down. Pei Yun staggered from my pole and scolded me impatiently. Ning Shi, what's gotten into you? I glared at him fiercely. Where's the letter? He froze slightly and turned his head away. I've sent it out. Blood rushed to my head, and I could barely stand, pounding on him desperately. Pei Yun, that brocade pouch was meant to save our child. He froze abruptly, his expression darkening quickly as he pulled me into a corner, lowering his voice. I thought you were acting strange. So you've been reborn too? Seeing that I remained silent, only glaring at him resentfully, he cleared his throat lightly with a fist to his mouth. We were once husband and wife. What's yours is mine. The Marchioness of Yongning is critically ill, and the imperial physician said only the miracle Dr. Luo might be able to help. Liar was crying so desperately. So I sneered. In our past life, there was no miracle Dr. Luo, and she was just fine. He furrowed his brows, looking at me with a deep gaze. Ning Shi, I dare not gamble. I've already missed her in one lifetime. What if the wife of Marquis Yongning isn't so fortunate this time? I can't take that risk. If you've truly been reborn, you should know that Yenner was never particularly bright. In our past life, he was mediocre and achieved nothing. Even if he turns out a bit slow-witted, it doesn't matter. He's still my child, and I'll provide for him all his life. Besides, if you hadn't been so gluttonous, the child wouldn't have had such a difficult birth. Eat less this time, and perhaps he'll be born healthy. I couldn't believe my eyes, my fingers trembling as I was left speechless. He didn't dare gamble with Deng Li's marriage, but when it came to me, he was willing to take the risk. My mind in turmoil. A dull pain throbbed in my lower abdomen, unable to hold on any longer. My vision went black as I fainted. When I woke up again, it was already evening. Old Madame Pei held my hand and sighed. I know everything now. Yun took your letter to save someone and didn't have time to tell you. It's understandable that you're angry. I suppose it was because of the Deng family's young lady that he was so anxious. Only then did I realize that Pei Yun had glossed over the details, only explaining the part about taking my letter to save the Marchioness of Yongning. If I say any more, it would seem as though I'm unwilling to help. Moreover, the old lady's words, both explicit and implicit, were also urging me to let the matter rest. Seeing my silence, she seemed somewhat embarrassed. There's one more thing. Lucian has brought up your marriage again, insisting he must marry you. He also said, the news of taking a wife has already been spread. She observed my expression and spoke cautiously. If you're still unwilling, I'll think of another way to help you out. No need. I softly interrupted her words and looked up at her. I am willing to marry. The letter could no longer be retrieved. No matter how well old Madame Pei treated me, there was always a barrier between us. I should also start thinking for myself and for the child in my womb. The old madam spoke the truth. Within 2 days, the capital was abuzz with rumors that Lord Lucian of the northern garrison was to marry a pregnant woman. Some said it was Lord Lu's romantic debt, that the woman had come knocking, leaving him no choice but to grudgingly accept. Others claimed she was Lucian's beloved, kept hidden away all this time. The entire Lu family was furious, wishing they could sever all ties with Lucian. When the news arrived, Pei Yun was discussing wedding invitation matters with Madame Pei. Upon hearing it, Pei Yun burst into laughter. Only he could do something so absurd. It serves him right for his disgraceful conduct. I smiled without saying a word. He probably forgot. It was clearly him who behaved improperly. Lady Pei glanced at me subtly, unwilling to say more. I lowered my head and stood up to take my leave. From what the old madam said, Lady Pei doesn't want me to marry from the Marquis's household, nor does she wish to be associated with me. She has never liked me. This I've always known. She thinks being connected to an unwed pregnant woman like me is beneath her dignity, that even mentioning it would soil her mouth, let alone discussing it with her son. The old madam had no choice but to select a separate residence for me, allowing me to marry as a daughter of the Ning family. Coincidentally, the wedding date was set for the same day as Pei Yun's grand wedding, and it's said that Lucian personally chose the date. Since Dr. Luo passed away, the health of the Marchioness of Yongning has been gradually improving, and the marriage arrangement with Deng Li has been proceeding smoothly. In this lifetime, he has finally achieved his wish, perhaps riding high on success, or perhaps out of a sense of guilt. Pei Yun came to see me once again. Since the marriage was settled, he had already come several times. Each time, he would chatter away for a while, sneakily sit for a moment, and then leave. Just like now, he stared at my belly. Has it been kicking much today? I don't care. He wasn't angry either. Still mad at me. Don't worry. After all, it's my flesh and blood. Once Madame Deng's health improves, I'll find a way to invite Dr. Luo to come. I'll make sure both mother and child are safe. Or are you worried about the mistress? There's no need for that. This time, I saved Liar's mother, and she will never interfere with me taking concubines again. Just focus on your pregnancy and wait for me. I really don't understand. Does he think the renowned Dr. Luo is as common as cabbage, available at his beck and call? Or does he believe that after a lifetime of being his bitter rival, I would still go to great lengths to become his concubine? Whatever he thinks, it no longer matters to me. A few days before the wedding, he finally stopped coming. Similarly, I was also sent by the old madam to a separate residence to await the wedding. There, I even met distant relatives of the Ning family. I thought the old madam had specifically arranged for them, but upon closer inquiry, I learned that it was Lucian who had managed to send them. I closed my eyes. My thoughts inexplicable. Whatever the reason, I must acknowledge Lucian's kindness. On the wedding day, no one from the Pei family came. It was presided over by distant relatives of the Ning family, with the arrangements handled by the matrons sent by the Pei family's elderly madam. Because I was pregnant, the wedding was not a grand affair. However, all the necessary formalities were still observed. By the time we were escorted to the bridal chamber, I was so exhausted I could barely stand straight. Fortunately, Lucian did not keep me waiting long. Through the red bridal veil, I twisted my handkerchief, searching for the right words. The moment my vision cleared, the man across from me stared in awe. After a long pause, I heard a low chuckle rise from his throat. No wonder everyone wants a wife. This feeling is truly wonderful. Lost in thought, I carefully chose my words. My lord, the entire capital now believes the child in my womb is yours. I wonder if you could treat him kindly. I know this is unfair to you. If you ever regret it in the future, just give me a letter of divorce, and I will leave immediately without complaint. As soon as the words left my mouth, the man's expression darkened abruptly. I cautiously lifted my head to look at him. Sir. He stood up, paced restlessly for a while, then spoke stiffly. It's getting late. You should rest early. I dared not say another word. No wonder people outside say Lord Liu of the Northern Garrison is unpredictable in his moods. It's indeed true. When I woke the next day, Lucian was already gone. The maid attending to me brought the household tally, saying the Lord had given orders that all matters, big or small, were now entirely under my control. Holding the weighty tally in my hand, I felt a tumult of mixed emotions. In my previous life, I spent over a decade in the Pei family without ever managing a single coin of the household finances. The so-called title of the heir's wife was merely nominal. It wasn't until the early morning of the third day that Lucian hurriedly returned. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and he looked somewhat exhausted. Seeing the carriage fully prepared, he naturally took my hand. Let's go. I'll accompany you back to your parents' home. I didn't respond, letting him hold my hand. After going through the motions at the Ning family villa, the carriage changed direction towards the Pei residence, thinking of Pei Yin also being there. In case of an awkward encounter, I pondered for a moment, lightly biting my lip. My lord, do you know who the father of the child in my womb is? He was resting with his eyes closed and let out a careless laugh. How would I know? I was hesitating whether to confess everything when the man suddenly let out a sinister chuckle. I think it's better if you don't tell me. I immediately shut my mouth. After arriving at the Pei residence, I headed straight for the old madam's courtyard. She was delighted to see me and eagerly asked, "Is that Lou boy treating you well?" I nodded slightly. "Though his moods are unpredictable, his heart is not unkind." The old lady nodded, repeatedly saying, "Good," 3 times. Yet her face still wore a worried expression, and for some reason, she looked even more haggard than usual. Upon being questioned, she finally sighed and said, "It's all because of Ayun. During the wedding procession yesterday, he somehow fell off the horse and injured his leg. The Deng family girl felt humiliated, and now the two of them are quarreling these past couple of days." My heart skipped a beat, and for some reason, Lucian's sinister face flashed through my mind. After chatting a bit more about everyday matters, she finally let me leave. Lucian had been taken by Marquis Pei to the study and hadn't returned yet, so I decided to wait for him. Just as I rounded the arched gate, I bumped straight into Pei Yun, who was walking toward me with a stern expression. He froze for a moment, then quickly shot me an annoyed glance. "I wondered why you didn't show up on my wedding day. So you were waiting here all along. Is being pregnant really worth clinging to me like this? I'm in a bad mood and don't have time for you. Just go back by yourself." His expression was grim, and he walked with a slight limp. Beneath the fine clothes, there was a hint of disarray. I had no intention of arguing with him and tried to walk past, but after a few steps, he stubbornly followed and even grabbed my arm. "I told you to go back to the courtyard. Where are you going in your condition?" I was completely fed up now, abruptly shaking off his hand and saying coldly, "Lord Pei, behave yourself. When did I ever say the child in my belly was yours?" He froze, staring at me with furrowed brows. "Ning Shi, what madness is this again? How could I not know whose child this is? Or are you still holding a grudge over the letter incident?" I stiffened my face and was about to speak when I suddenly caught sight of old lady Pei being helped over by someone not far away. The words died in my throat. Only when old lady Pei approached did she take my hand. "It's just bad timing. Right after you left, the maid came to report that Lucian had urgent business and needed to leave. He's waiting for you at the gate now." She looked at me with a hint of reluctance, but in the next moment, her gaze suddenly froze, and her brows furrowed. "Ayun, why are you here too? Didn't you go back to your parents' home? Why have you returned alone?" I didn't want to get involved in their family matters, so I cleared my throat and took my leave. Old lady Pei nodded. "Very well. You must live a good life with Lucian in the future, and never be like this wretched creature." Pei Yun was stunned and instinctively retorted, "Why should I live a good life with Lucian?" The old lady glared at him with displeasure. "Didn't your mother tell you? Sheer married Lucian, and the child in her belly is that Lu family boy's." At this, Pei Yun's expression completely changed, and his voice rose several notches. "What did you say? You're saying the child in Ning Shi's belly is Lucian's?" The old lady looked at him in surprise, not having had time to speak yet. From not far away came a mocking tone, half laughing, half sneering. "Of course, if it's not mine, could it possibly be yours?" I shuddered all over and suddenly turned my head. Lucian stood beneath the peach tree in the distance, dressed in a moon-white robe, his hands clasped behind his back. His narrow, phoenix-like eyes slanted slightly upward, exuding an air of 3 parts laziness and 2 parts indifference. Noticing my gaze, he lazily extended an arm. "Come here." I pressed my lips together and stepped toward him. Halfway there, a hand stopped me. Pei Yun stared at me intently, his voice trembling slightly with a hint of hoarseness. "Ning Shi, don't you dare misidentify who the father of the child in your belly is." The words misidentify were heavily emphasized by him. I smiled faintly, raising my eyes to meet his gaze directly. "You jest, my lord. How could I possibly mistake such a matter? If you don't believe me, ask the dowager. She was the one who personally helped me find this person." Pei Yun stiffly turned his head away. Old lady Pei didn't understand the situation, but still nodded affirmatively. "Absolutely true. Even the birthmark matches." Pei Yun took a step back in disbelief, his lips trembling speechlessly. On the way back to the residence, Lucian remained silent with his eyes closed, resting. I cautiously glanced at him, pondering in my heart, judging by his reaction to Pei Yun. It seems he knows everything. Indeed, what kind of place is the Northern Garrison Division? How could they not uncover such a matter? After hesitating for a moment, I finally spoke. "Pei Yun, he His closed dark eyes suddenly opened, staring at me with an intense gaze. You're not allowed to talk about separation, not allowed to say you regret it, and definitely not allowed to mention that Pei guy. I stared at him in stunned silence. After a moment of eye contact, he closed his eyes again, his face showing a hint of suppressed pain. Only then did I notice that his complexion was paler than usual. A thought struck me, and I blurted out, "Are you hurt?" He pressed his lips together and remained silent. I moved to sit beside him and reached out to check his pulse. Sure enough, he had internal injuries. "If you're injured, why still insist on going to the Pei family with me?" He seemed to let out a faint, mocking laugh, squinting slightly as he glanced at me. "Who knows if you'll even come back after leaving this time." I had considered that Pei Yun might come looking for me. I just didn't expect him to be this quick. On the day I returned from Wan'an Temple, my carriage was stopped. In the cramped corner, his eyes were dark red, bloodshot and filled with rage. "Ning Shi, how dare you? Who allowed you to marry someone else with my child?" I wasn't the least bit afraid of him and let out a light laugh. "Has the heir perhaps forgotten that it was you who personally claimed the child is not yours? If the heir refuses to acknowledge it, what's wrong with me finding a father for the child in my womb?" His pupils suddenly dilated, as if he couldn't believe I would say such words. After all, in his memories from the previous life, his wife was an extremely conservative woman. After a long silence, he spoke through gritted teeth. "Ning Shi, that's my flesh and blood. Blood is thicker than water. Do you really think Lucian wouldn't mind? Would he mind? Perhaps. In my eyes, that person's concern was far more reliable than that of the so-called father of this child." I took a step back and turned to leave. He grabbed my sleeve. He stared into my eyes, a storm brewing in his gaze. "You'll regret this, Ning Shi." I ignored him and walked away with a flick of my sleeve. After returning to the residence, I stopped going out and focused on resting at home during my pregnancy. I had no idea what Lucian was busy with. He left early and returned late every day, sometimes even staying away for several days at a time. It was Pei Yun's news that, through the maid's gossip, occasionally reached my ears. For instance, the young Master Pei seemed to have lost his soul, wandering around in a daze for quite some time, unwilling to speak of anything when asked. For instance, the young Master Pei finally pulled himself together, began to take an interest in court affairs, and grew increasingly close to the Crown Prince. For instance, he reconciled with the young lady of the Deng family, and the two were as sweet as honey. With the young lady now expecting a child, I just laughed it off. There's nothing wrong with that. After September passed, my belly grew even larger, caressing my belly, now about the same size as in my past life. I couldn't help but feel troubled. Despite eating and spending less, my stomach still swelled like a balloon. Lucian seemed to notice my unease, frowning without speaking. Yet on the third day at noon, he sent someone over. Watching the cursing Dr. Luo, I widened my eyes. Lucian stood there nonchalantly, half threatening, half coaxing. "As long as the mother and child are safe, your little daughter hidden in the mountains will be fine. But if even a single hair on their heads is harmed..." Humph. Dr. Luo was so angry he stomped his feet. "Lucian, you thunderstruck scoundrel. May you die a wretched death sooner or later." Such harsh words immediately darkened my expression. A divine healer saves lives with compassion. "Please mind your words." Lucian paused slightly, his beautiful phoenix eyes rippling with emotion, filling even the air with a sense of delight. "With Dr. Luo here, I feel mostly at ease. The remaining unease lies with Lucian. For some reason, I can't shake the feeling that Pei Yun's words that day were strange. I can't help but feel that beneath the seemingly calm surface of the capital, turbulent undercurrents are brewing, and a storm is imminent. My intuition was not wrong. Within a few days, news came from outside that the second prince had rebelled. The entire Lu residence was surrounded. Not even a fly could escape. Only then did I realize that Lucian had been working for the second prince all along. Since parting with Pei Yun, I've occasionally mentioned court affairs to Lucian in a subtle way, cautioning him to act prudently and avoid aligning with the wrong faction. I even went so far as to praise the crown prince, who ascended the throne in my past life, to the skies. Yet every time I brought it up, he would gaze at me with a meaningful look, as if wanting to say something but holding back. Now, has it finally come too late? A row of Jinling guards stood in front of the Lu residence. Leading them was Pei Yun. He looked at me with a mocking smile. Madam Lu. It's been a while. In the flower hall, he sat across from me, staring intently into my eyes. Ning Shi. I'm giving you one last chance. Just admit that the child in your belly is mine, and publicly claim that Lu Shen forced himself on you. I can find a way to absolve you of guilt. As for liar, don't worry. I'll handle it properly. That sounds quite good. It can save lives and let the child recognize their real father. However, I refuse. With a flick of the wrist, the tea splashed all over his face. Pei Yun suddenly stood up, glaring angrily. Ning Shi. I also rose to my feet, meeting his gaze directly. Lord Pei, the father of my child will always be Lu Shen, regardless of bloodline. Nothing else matters. After that, Pei Yun never came to see me again. However, the inspections in the mansion grew stricter day by day. Worried about my pregnancy and concerned about Lu Shen, I ended up losing some weight. As October approached, I finally went into labor. Waves of pain surged through me, leaving me dizzy and disoriented. I was rushed to the delivery room. Everything before me blurred, and I could only feel something continuously flowing downward. People came and went around me. The maids' calls, the old women's shouts. Finally, it was the calm command of Dr. Luo. At the moment the baby cried, I fainted. When I woke up again, a familiar figure was sitting by my side. It's Lu Shen. His stubbled face and usually half-smiling dark eyes were now bloodshot. He looked haggard and disheveled. At this moment, he was holding my hand against his face. Seeing me awake, his eyes lit up, and he spoke in a hoarse voice. How are you feeling? Any discomfort? I shook my head and asked anxiously. Why did you come back? They're after you outside. He tightly grasped my fingers and said with pity. It was my lack of consideration that made you suffer. Don't worry. I've already arranged the people outside. It's fine. After a moment of silence, I spoke softly. Will the second prince be able to win? In my previous life, none of this happened. The crown prince clearly ascended the throne smoothly. I wonder if it's because of my rebirth that so many unforeseen changes have occurred. It has also rewritten Lu Shen's life. Lu Shen raised his eyes and gave me a deep look before finally saying, the second prince. He cannot win. My heart tightened, and I abruptly sat up. Lu Shen was startled and quickly reached out to steady me. Don't panic. I said the second prince can't win. Not that I can't win. I became increasingly confused by the meaning behind his words. He wrapped his arms around me, resting his chin on my forehead. His voice muffled. Actually, I never wanted to fight for that position in the first place. What's the point of being supreme? It's rather meaningless. But I can't. As he spoke, his words grew more and more gritted through clenched teeth, and the arm encircling me tightened with force. I can't stand Pei's insolence over me, and even less can I bear the thought of him taking you away from me. This throne, I must fight for it, whether I want to or not. I was utterly shocked. How did this suddenly involve the imperial throne? He adjusted my face to look at him properly, his voice regaining its former playful tone. Do you know why the Lu family dislikes me but can't get rid of me? Because I'm not a Lu by blood. My real father is the emperor. I'm the bastard son the damned emperor kept hidden outside. My heart was in turmoil. I had never imagined such a situation. In the previous life's struggle for the throne, Lu Shen had never been involved. In fact, he left for the borderlands as soon as the power struggle began. Could it be that he did it because of me? I never knew that from the moment I chose him. He was also stepping onto a path of no return. How could that be? After a long silence, I finally heard my own voice. He cupped my face, staring straight into my eyes. So Ningxi, you once asked me why I married you. Do you know the answer now? My throat tightened, and I could almost feel the warmth of tears welling up in my eyes. Yet I laughed. I understand now. You have feelings for me. He has feelings for me, which is why he was willing to marry me despite the risk of being cuckolded. He has feelings for me, which is why he endured his injuries just to accompany me back to my family. Even to the point of teasing Pei Yun several times to vent my anger for me. So this is how it feels to be truly cherished by someone. It's wonderful. He gave a light hum and pulled me into his embrace. Better late than never to realize it. When I woke up the next day, Lu Shen was already gone. It was as if the tenderness of last night had been an illusion. But I knew he would return. Clutching the jade thumb ring in my palm, I pressed my lips together. This was given to me by Lucian. He said if I ever encountered danger, with this thumb ring, I could mobilize the hidden guards in the mansion to ensure my safe departure. If he returns alive, he will naturally come looking for me. But if something unexpected happens, he wants me to flee far away and never return. But how could I possibly abandon him alone? The wet nurse brought Wei over. I reached out and took it. His name is Lu Wei, given by Lucian. It comes from the saying, a gentleman knows what to do and what not to do, hoping that as he grows up, he won't be constrained by lineage and can distinguish right from wrong. Young Wei grew quickly, always opening his eyes and smiling, hardly ever crying or fussing. For some reason, I always feel this child is somewhat different from his past life. When Weiga turned 1 month old, a major upheaval occurred in the palace. The second prince was killed, pierced through the heart by an arrow, while the crown prince was severely injured and went missing. It was at this time that the Jinling guards, who had been quietly stationed at the residence, began to take action. They want to take me and my son into the palace and throw us into the imperial dungeon. I can roughly guess that the emperor has only tolerated us until now because Lucian is his own son. Now, it seems he no longer wishes to endure. The secret guards urged me to escape with them. I hesitated, unsure of which path to take. Lu Wei patted me with his chubby little hand, pointed in the direction of the imperial palace, and uttered the first word of his life. Let's go. I decided to enter the palace. Before Lucian was convicted, I couldn't leave. Fortunately, I won the bet. The emperor stroked his beard with satisfaction. Thankfully, at least one son is normal, with the eldest and second sons falling into trouble one after another. How can I not suspect your involvement? From behind the screen, Lucian also stepped out, bowing his head in agreement. I immediately felt a great weight lift from my heart, tears streaming down my face. In March of the following year, the crown prince passed away from illness. Lucian was formally recognized as a descendant of the imperial family and was established as the new crown prince. And naturally, I became the crown princess. It was only then that I learned the crown prince had secretly poisoned the emperor in his eagerness to ascend the throne, thus ruining his own future. Rumors say this medicine originated from the Pei family. The Pei clan was purged. Except for Pei Yun, the entire clan was exiled. Pei Yun was imprisoned and sentenced to execution after autumn. Unfortunately, he probably won't last until autumn. Lucian wants him dead. He propped his head up slightly and looked at me. He's been spouting nonsense in the dungeon lately. I can't tolerate him anymore. He knew there was no hope of recovery and wanted to see you one last time. In the prison, Pei Yun appeared deranged, seeing me as if I were his lifeline. Ning Shi, I am the father of your son. How can you not save me? This shouldn't be how it is. In this second life, we clearly shouldn't be like this. I should have grown old with Lyre in love, and you should still be by my side. I've raised my own flesh and blood. How can you leave me? This doesn't make sense. I gazed at him quietly, my heart calm and undisturbed. Pei Yun, nothing in this world is owed, and no one deserves to wait for another. Safe journey on the road to the underworld. I turned and walked away. He wanted to shout, but someone covered his mouth. After leaving the imperial prison, I went to the Pei residence. The place was empty, with only the elderly Lady Pei lying sick in bed. Her vision seemed blurred, and she could no longer recognize people. Is that Lyre? Didn't you request to leave the family? What are you back for? It's said that the Deng family forced Pei Yun to write a letter of divorce the very day they learned about the Pei family's misfortune. Not only has Deng Li returned home, but she's also aborted the child in her womb. No amount of pleading made any difference. After all, it was the Lady Pei who once doted on me, and I couldn't help feeling a pang of sorrow in my heart. I stepped forward and took her hand, lowering my voice. Madam, it's me. She trembled all over and grasped my hand in return. It's you, Axie. I nodded vigorously. Old Lady Pei treated me well, and Lucian pleaded with the emperor to pardon her. However, after this ordeal, her health has deteriorated even further. Now, the oil is exhausted and the lamp is dry. After a long while, I heard her sigh softly. Child, the rumors outside are true, aren't they? I didn't speak. She shook her head again to herself. It's Yun who wronged you. He wasn't fortunate enough. If only I had known earlier, I would have arranged your marriage sooner. I didn't tell her that in our past life, we actually did get married. But it didn't turn out well. 3 days later, the Pei family sent news of mourning, saying the old lady had passed away. When I went, I still held the fish-patterned jade pendant Pei Yun had given me. I closed my eyes, my eyelids moist, to crawl over and wipe my tears. Your Highness, don't cry. If there was anyone in my past life who treated me well, it was only the old madam. He has always been intelligent, so much so that he was a gift from heaven to me. I could tell from the moment at the fortune-drawing banquet when he avoided all the royal objects and chose the most inconspicuous wildflower. In September of that year, I was pregnant again. The imperial physician diagnosed my pulse and confirmed it was twins. The emperor was greatly pleased, and Lucian's eyes also reddened with excitement. He caressed my belly, speaking incoherently. Our child. This is our flesh and blood. I suddenly found it amusing. Your Highness, there's a question I've been wanting to ask you. We've only met a few times, so why are you so determined to have me? He lowered his head, looking at me playfully. At our first meeting in Jiangzhou, you asked me where I was injured. When I rolled up my sleeve, you blushed instantly. At that moment, I thought to myself, this woman is truly beautiful. I spat at him, then leaned into his embrace. The road ahead is long, with storms and rains. Fortunately, someone walks with me.